Hello there guys, this is Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, and today I am here with my September wrap-up and my August TBR. We'll start with my September wrap-up. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This was for Stormalong 2020, of course. We've got our last live stream coming up on, I believe, October 1st for Words of Radiance, and then we'll have 4 more live streams for Oathbringer after that. This has been so wonderful to reread. It's just like meeting up with an old friend, only I'm doing it with a bunch of new friends. I hope you'll join us if you're interested in high fantasy. There's still plenty of time to catch up. We'll be reading Oathbringer throughout October and November. Rhythm of War, the 4th book, comes out in November, so we're just finishing a slightly later than the release date, but that'll give you some time for your book to ship, so I hope you will join us. It really has been such a treat. I also read part 1 of Crime and Punishment this month. We're going to be having live shows on Danny's channel for this, for Dust CP 2020. We've had 2 live shows so far, and we'll have the next one, I believe, on October 3rd. And all of the live show information for Stormalong 2020 and Dust CP 2020 will be down below in the description, along with Danny's channel and along with my wonderful co-hosts for Stormalong 2020, Victoria, a musical bookworm, Michael Nip from Michael Nip, and Ryan and Kristen Cardinale from Seeking Stories. Regardless, I have loved reading this again. This is my favorite book ever. Most accessible classic, I think, that I've ever read. And it seems like most of the people reading along with us totally agree with that. You also have plenty of time to jump into this read along if you're interested. Let me know down below in the comments if you want to join in the Voxer, and do join us over on Danny's channel for the live shows. So the next live show will be about parts 2 and 3, and I have started part 2. I'm loving it. I'm also planning to read a short story by Clarice Lispector, my very first short story by her, because the Codex Cantina just did a video on that, and I know Leslie just read it as well. I'm completely addicted to the short story read-alongs that the Codex Cantina does over on their channel. I'm also reading Royal Assassin with Michael's Patreon buddy read group in his Discord. I'm actually listening to this on audiobook because I've already read this whole trilogy, so I'm just blowing through it on audiobook, and it is so immersive and so wonderful. I love the second book. I remember now that the first book was more difficult for me because Fitz was a very lonely young boy, and it starts when he's like 5 years old. This one, it starts when he's a young man, and he has a lot of really complex relationships, and that's really what I enjoy reading about, particularly when there's issues like magic going on that he can't talk to people about, and animal friendships that he is also not allowed to talk about, because people who make too close of friends with animals in this book, magically, they get like burned or killed or something. So Fitz has to keep that on the DL, and he's got so many secrets from his loved ones, and I just love all the characters in here. I can't really tell you too much about this because it would be spoilery, but it's a wonderful high fantasy series, and there's lots of magical, mysterious elements going on, and you see everything from the point of view of a young man called Fitz Chivalry, and you see his flaws and you see other people's flaws through his point of view, and it's just constantly revelatory and really wonderful writing. I highly recommend it if you're into fantasy and literary fiction as well. Next, I have been reading Dreamer's Pool by Juliet Marillier with Ramsey from Readathon's Discord book club. I've been looking forward to this one for literally years. I'm over halfway for sure. I'm at like 53% or something in the ebook, and it's flying by. I didn't really enjoy the first 6 chapters, and then all of a sudden it just took off and I could not put it down. I couldn't sleep. I was just reading and reading. It got very compelling. Some of the tension is not my favorite kind of tension. However, it is very compelling still. There are at least 2 big mysteries going on, magical mysteries, and I love those. I just realized while I was reading this that I love a good magical mystery. I never really realized that. I'm really loving the mystery in this one. If you like fantasies with strong mystery plots in them, you might really enjoy this. There is a lot of talk about body parts. I don't know if that bothers anybody. Maybe a little bit more PG-13 than PG, and it's pretty long anyway. However, I'm really enjoying it. Try to get to like chapter 10 and then decide decide if you're going to stick with it or not. I'm so happy that this is not turning out to be a disappointment, because this was my nomination and it happened to win, and I was like, woo, you know, and then when I wasn't liking it, I was like a little anxious. I was like, did I choose a bad book? I've also been reading the Threefold Lotus Sutra, of course, and I read up through chapter 14. Noah from Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse, who's hosting this read along, and he's doing a wonderful job. He's giving us all discussion boxes, and I always have so many questions when I'm reading this, and he always has really thoughtful answers for me, so it's really been a treat. Slow going for me. It's not something that's easy for me to concentrate on at all. It's kind of like reading the Bible. Very metaphorical and just meta, but also very peaceful and calming. I am a very strong Christian, and I don't think that's ever gonna change. However, I really do love reading about other religions. If you're interested in reading with us, there's still time. I'm sure you're a faster reader than I am. This is actually a very readable translation, so let me know if you want to join the Voxer. And I think the last thing that I read this month, I can't think of anything else that I read, although I might have, I don't know, was The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene. This book, it blew me away. I was meeting with my friend Amy, who is doing a Zoom book club for our library right now. She tends to prefer more happy, kind of cozy kind of fiction, but she had heard that Graham Greene deals with Catholic values in a really interesting way, and she also is religious. She's a Jehovah's Witness, and I'm a Christian, so we were very keen to check out Graham Greene, because I love it when spiritual writers are on the literary scene. I just feel like their works are so much richer for me personally. This book is amazing. It's about a priest in 1930s communist Mexico during the Red Shirt Revolution, and he's pretty much just trying to escape the authorities because his life is in danger, and he didn't leave when he could have because people kept calling to him and saying they needed help, they needed confessions, whatever. Every time he tries to escape, somebody calls him back, and he just can't say no. And it explores the meanings of pride and courage, and it's just fabulous. In fact, I recorded a review of it. Hopefully it will be up very soon and you guys can see that, because it's such a worthwhile book. I would recommend it to anybody who is interested in reading about complex morality in the background of political revolutions and war and upheavals, and how that can affect your religion. Religion is outlawed in this time and place. And so it's just so fascinating to watch this priest who, at various contexts in his life, he's like a different person. It's a very short book and we get several perspectives. I definitely need to read more Graham Greene now. On to my October TBR. I have a feeling I'm gonna need to pick and choose a little bit because I have so many plans. This might be the one that has to go, but I'm gonna start with it because I'm very interested in it, and I just watched a Better Than Food book review on it, and it made me really want to just pick it up immediately. The Posthumous Memoirs of Brás Cubas by Machado de Assis. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing all of that. This author is apparently enormously popular in Brazil. Lucy the Reader chose it for her Classics Community Book Club for actually September. I totally forgot. I also need to finish Rebecca this month. I am somewhere in chapter 7 of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and I'm reading this along with Danny. She has a Facebook book club, Danny from Spadelli Speaks, the one who's doing the Crime and Punishment read along. So far it feels almost like a young adult story. It feels like I'm rereading Twilight, or maybe what's the 50 Shades. It feels kind of like the main guy character is kind of like Christian Grey, I think is his name. I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey, but that's just the impression that I'm getting from this guy. The inner monologue, it's a little bit too internal, which for me is saying something. I love internal monologue, but it's like reading a Sarah Dessen book or something. It's all about what the girl is thinking and feeling, and she's like, I don't know, 19? She's very, very young and naive, and she keeps telling us that. There's a storyteller outside of the story who's explaining what's happening to her younger self. It's kind of repetitive sometimes in its descriptions when it's being very clever, and it keeps going on being clever, where it's extending the metaphor on and on and on and on. This book might be able to be a third shorter. I get really impatient when I read stuff like that. I started Midnight Sun. This breaks my heart. I started Midnight Sun because I was a huge Twilight fan when I was a teen, and I was enjoying it in a lot of ways, but also why couldn't she cut out 300 pages? I just feel like it's an overload of Edward's internal monologue. I love Edward's internal monologue in Midnight Sun. It's really fun and interesting to see inside of everybody's heads. He lives in a very complex mental world, but man, it's just so long, and I'm getting the exact same vibes with this one. When was Rebecca published? I don't know. I am looking forward to reading this. I just wish I had an audiobook. What else am I reading? The autobiography of Eudora Welty is called One Writer's Beginnings. I'm so looking forward to reading this. So much. It's a beautiful copy. I have to show you the cover. It's being republished by Scribner's right now. There it is. Oh, isn't it so beautiful? I got this on NetGalley, and I'm just so pumped when I can find classics on NetGalley that they want reviewed. It's like, pick me. I got another one too, and both of these are due like the first couple of days of November, so I do need to get these read. The other one is The Journey from St. Petersburg to Moscow, which is another classic of Russian literature this time, which, you know, your girl loves some Russian literature. Oh, this one isn't as good. It's kind of grainy. I'll probably put a picture of it up here. By Alexander Radishev. I think he was some kind of radical. I don't really know. I'm very interested though. I'll probably be reading some of Eudora Welty's short stories along with her One Writer's Beginnings because I'm sure it'll reference her stories. Here we go with me overloading myself. It's just that I'm interested in so many things and I want to talk about them even if I can only take part a little bit. They're put together so well that I just definitely want to be a part of it. Obviously, the first thing is Victober. I'm so excited about Victober. Obviously, Kate Howe is one of the co-hosts. She's a wonderful human being. And obviously, Katie from Books and Things. Everybody knows Katie. And Lucy the Reader, I think, is the other co-host. Each of the co-hosts did a challenge, and there's going to be like a group read, and I think there's like an extra challenge. So let's just go with it. Katie's challenge is read a Victorian book that equates to your favorite modern genre, which is a very tough topic for me. I probably read a lot more fantasy just because I really like to read with people. But my favorite modern genre, I think I would actually say science fiction because I really love the thoughtfulness that is often put into science fiction. Not that fantasy isn't thoughtful, it really is, but there's a lot of really idea-focused science fiction, and I find that fascinating. It just really tickles that part of my brain that I just always want more of it, and that's largely due to Fantasy and Science Fiction magazine. They've just had some wonderful short stories over the years. I really need to buy that again. I need to get a prescription. A subscription. I'm reading A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court for that challenge, and for the Reader's Challenge, which is to read a Victorian book from a previous Victober TBR that you never got to, or one that you've been meaning to read for ages. I've been wanting to read this one ever since I heard of it. I mean, that title is just, I mean, how can you not want to read that? That just sounds so fun, right? General Challenge is to read a Victorian book while wearing something Victorian or Victorian-esque. My choker! I have a choker that's kind of like steampunky Victorian that my friend Amy, who is reading the Graham Greene book with me, she made it for me. I checked with Kate Howe. It's Kate approved. Lucy's challenge is to read a Victorian diary or collection of letters. I'm totally cheating on this one because I cannot read a whole collection in 1 month. I just do not have the time right now. However, there is a victorianweb.org with Victorian letters, and there's a whole list of them, and they're done by subject. And I am just fascinated by that. I'm definitely going to read 1 or 2 of those. And for Kate's challenge, it's read a new to you book and or short story by a favorite Victorian author. So I'm going to be reading Mary Barton along with Rainy Day Reads. I fell in love with Mr. Harrison's Confessions a couple months ago. Wonderful. Hello there, it's Editing Christy. This is becoming a regular thing. I just wanted to say that I forgot. I would really love to read The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy. I've been meaning to read that for a really long time, so maybe I will try to fit that in. That would be my first Thomas Hardy, and I've heard really good things about him. I will also be continuing on with Crime and Punishment. I will be reading Oathbringer, woo, and Assassin's Quest, and Kate Howe is doing a Jane Eyre readathon. I've already read Jane Eyre twice, so I'm probably just gonna skim it and maybe listen to some of it on audio so that I can join in discussions. And Kate's gonna have like a Instagram group watching the movie together of Jane Eyre, so it's just gonna be a good time. The last thing that I will be doing in October is Seiji from the Artisan Geek is hosting a horror readathon called Fortnight Frights, and I love her channel. I just can't get enough of it. Even though I don't normally read horror, I've read some horror that I really loved. It's like classic battle of good and evil, right? And the spiritual world is usually involved. And I think I would like it if I got more involved in it. I read the I Am Not a Serial Killer by Dan Wells. He's one of Brandon Sanderson's Writing Excuses co-hosts. That series was wonderful. That was horror. That was one of my first experiences with horror, and I loved it so much. I'm planning to read a short story, The Human Chair by Edogawa Ranpo. And there is a translation free online as well as an audiobook on YouTube. And it's Japanese, which interests me very much. I would love to read more Japanese and Chinese and Korean things and other Asian things. I would love to read more Indian literature. I mean, I'd love to read more from everywhere. After falling so hard in love with Russian literature, I'm curious. There's going to be a Twitter movie night of Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca on October 25th, which will be awesome because I'm reading Rebecca. But she's doing some other stuff too. There's this skull-faced bookseller, Honda-san, on Crunchyroll. It's like a cutesy kind of horror. That'll be another Twitter movie night. She's doing live shows for some horror books. And oh, I didn't even say, I think it's October 18th through the 31st. She's having live shows on the 31st and the 24th for some books. The first live show is going to be for Things We Lost in the Fire. It's pretty short. That would cover all of the challenges that I need to get a bingo on her bingo board. I'll put the bingo board right here. That would cover short story written before 1960 and translated piece. Those were all from the Japanese short story. And then a piece of dark fantasy would be covered by Things We Lost in the Fire. I love live shows. Hey guys, I just wanted to say I added one more book to my TBR, of course. It's called A Grain of Wheat, and I cannot pronounce the author's name, I'm so sorry. But it's for Seiji the Artisan Geeks Book Club, and I'm just really excited to read along with her. She has like a diverse classics club on her Patreon. I hope you enjoyed this wrap-up and TBR, and let me know down in the comments what you read this month and what you're planning to read next month. If you're planning to join any of these read-alongs, I would love to know about it. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.